Well, welcome back to the program. Lots to get through with my panel tonight, so let me introduce them. Joining me is National Senator Ross Cadell and One Nation National Executive Manager Lee Hanson. Good evening to you both. Let's start with the US alliance. It's long been a cornerstone of our national security, but questions are now being raised about just how solid the relationship really is. Former Home Affairs Secretary Mike Pezzullo has warned the relationship is drifting. He has sensibly, in my view, urged Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to pick up the phone and talk to Donald Trump to reaffirm Australia's commitment to the alliance. Have a listen to what he had to say.
We would fight if we had to. We, of course, prefer not to. And in Washington, we need to give the same message, Laura. We cannot have a situation in 27 or 28 or whenever this may or may not arise where there's confusion about what President Trump and his administration have asked us. We cannot have the debacle of him at press conferences, responding to Sky News journalists saying, well, I've asked them for help, they didn't help. That lack of clarity and that confusion would be deadly lethal.
Ross, he makes a pretty good point, but do you think the PM will pick up the phone?
I think there's very little chance of that. This relationship's been rubbish from the start. We had Albo there. We had that Rudd over there after his tweet history with Kevin. We saw what happened in the press conference when Clennell asked that question there. I think he doesn't want to do it for two reasons. I think if he does get asked formally, and remember every time he's asked this question he says, we haven't been asked formally. It's like a little asterisk on whether we've been asked or not. I don't think he wants to get asked formally because I'm not sure, given the state of Australian defence status right now, whether we could send anything of merit. Isn't it ridiculous a country like Australia has trouble putting a boat over there or things on the ground to help, and Ukraine's talking about sending 4 minesweepers that they've got while they're at war with Russia? This is a ridiculous state. It shows how ridiculous our defence abilities have been and the relationship, how bad it is. I think the only good thing that this government has done in the relationship with America is send Greg Moriarty as the next ambassador, who has a defence basis, who was around when the AUKUS stuff was being formed, and hopefully they'll start to mend that relationship, which is horribly torn.
Lee, I sometimes wonder if it's almost deliberate on the part of the government. If I had a good friend who was continually saying something that I had not said or misunderstanding me, my response wouldn't be to shrug my shoulders and say, oh, well, that's their problem. I'd get on the phone, ring them and say, hey, what's going on? Clearly there's been a misunderstanding. So the fact that Anthony Albanese is continually asked this question and he repeatedly says that's a matter for Donald Trump, it's almost like the government is deliberately trying to put space between themselves and this US administration. Maybe they believe that Trump is unpopular and so it's a vote winner for them. What's your take on all of this?
I agree with you, James. The sensible thing would be to pick up the phone and have a conversation. Our relationship with the USA is absolutely essential. It's essential for our country and for the future. What I believe is happening is the Labor government, one, is demonstrating their incompetence. Two, they're trying to put distance between themselves and Trump. We know that the mainstream media paint Trump in poor light here in Australia, so he's appeasing to the polls to have no affiliation or association or distance himself as far as he can. But instead, it's showing his incompetence as a leader. And as you say, any good business person, any good leader or stakeholder manager would pick up the phone and have a conversation. I mean, if someone says, I was ignoring them, what would you do? The first thing, give them a call. What's going on? You know, that doesn't mean you're necessarily going to agree, but you need to have the conversation because the Prime Minister needs to look beyond the current and immediate term. A good leader looks for long-term vision. What's the long-term plan? And we need to maintain a strong relationship with America, and he's not doing that.
It almost feels like the government's plan long-term is to wait until Trump's term ends and then hope for a Democrat to replace him. But I tell you what, if they keep doing this with Trump and then Trump's replaced by J.D. Vance, as you pointed out, Ross, our relationship with the US will be in all sorts of trouble with damage done over a long period of time. Let's turn to those other geniuses, the Greens. They've come up with what sounds, I don't know, less like economic policy and more like student politics. They've decided, according to their spokesman for finance, housing and homelessness, this is Senator Barbara Pocock, the rent freeze and a ban on evictions would give people the security they need during the fuel and cost of living crisis. She said today people are already experiencing financial stress, struggling to make ends meet. This sensible, immediate cost of living rent relief will support people with the least secure housing. Lee, it looks like they don't think of the knock-on consequences, do they? Because this is fraught.
This infuriated me when I saw this, James. The fact is, yes, there is going to be knock-on consequences. So hang on. Everyone is suffering right now. The cost of living, the fuel crisis situation that's occurring, I get it. Renters, landlords, homeowners are all struggling. So let's appease to renters by punishing the landlords, which majority of those who own investment properties in Australia are those that have one property for retirement plans or if they, the superannuation fund basically. So let's punish those that are trying to get ahead who actually are investing in their own future. But what really irates me is the fact that the Greens play a key role as to why we're in a cost of living, why we have the housing pressures here. So hang on, why don't they look at the root causes as to why the cost of living is so high and people are under rental strain or mortgage strain right now? Greens have been involved and are liable for this. Stop the root causes, stop the net zero agenda, pushing up the unreliable and high energy prices. Let's, how about we stop the open borders philosophy that they have and actually reduce immigration, which will improve the supply and demand issue as to why housing is so short as well. There are numerous issues which are contributing to this factor. Instead, they just want to punish those that are actually trying to ensure a solid security or future for themselves. It makes me so irate in the way that they think.
I think a lot of people would feel the same way. Ross, is it serious economic reform on the part of the Greens, or is this just a sure way to get some votes at the next election?
Greens would never get within cooey of serious economic reform, and this is not there too. I agree with Lee. What a great business. I'm jealous of the Greens. They have this great business model. They cause the problem, then try to get votes by complaining about the problem. So on our little councils, let's never approve a development. Let's never approve a building. Let's go out everywhere if someone wants to build a block of lands or a housing development and say, no, we've got to save the, grey fleck blue frog or whatever this is this week. And then we'll let all these people into the nation that needs houses because we can't stop immigration, but then we complain that no one can find a... What a great thing. Create the problem, complain about the problem and get elected on the problem you create. It's a great model. I'm jealous. I think, we should all do that. I might go out and see what problems I can cause that then I can pretend to fix. It's not even close to a serious policy of we're going to go out there and freeze the rents of these people. Just remember, this government's about to do something with capital gains tax for investors. They're about to do something with negative gearings for rental investors. So we're going to hurt the expense side of property investors, and now the Greens want to hurt the income side. The greatest sin in this country is having a few spare bucks now. So if you've been able to save, you've been able to do the right thing, let's just find a way to take it off you, and it's just ridiculous.
Ross, I'm just wondering who you know that's got a few spare bucks these days. I don't know anyone at the moment. Have you noticed Chris? Have you noticed Chris Bowen though? He doesn't seem terribly concerned about the fuel crisis. Maybe that's because he really does have the situation under control. Maybe it's because he doesn't like fossil fuels and so a shortage is hardly upsetting him. And besides, the fuel shortage is driving more Australians toward his preferred form of transport, which of course is EVs. But before you get excited, you might want to pause for a moment because there's not always the case that they are what they seem. Here's an interesting article from today's Australian. It says the Australian Automobiles Association's Commonwealth-funded research shows the BYD Dolphin, that's a very popular EV, fell 24% short of its advertised driving range, with the EV travelling 313 k's instead of the advertised 410. The BYD Sea-Line, a small SUV, travelled 469 k's, which was 17% under its advertised range of 576 k's. And that's not all. The research found the hybrid was less fuel efficient than some petrol or small diesel SUVs. And this was true in numbers and numbers of these electric vehicles. So, Ross, for families looking for fuel relief, this could come as a nasty surprise. They're being sold a dream that doesn't really exist.
Yeah, and it's by such a big margin. Like, I know car manufacturers have sometimes pushed the boundaries. Saw the Volkswagen emissions thing a while ago and what they've done. But these 20%, that's not even close to getting it right. And I want to know what action is going to be taken against these companies. We saw the book thrown at Volkswagen. So what is going to be happen to these people that are importing these cars that don't deliver on these promises? You get in your car, I'm in the Hunter Valley, I'm at Newcastle right now, want to go to Sydney and back, that's basically 350, 340 kilometres. I buy a car that can do 400 k's on the paper. I'm stuck down on the Central Coast for the night because it hasn't done the detail. These are real problems. This is fraud if this is what's going on. But I guarantee you're not going to hear anything because there is nothing wrong with the electrification of Australia and decarbonising according to this government. But they will do nothing to fix this. And this is why they're not doing anything on the fuel crisis of merit. They're coping to get through it. They're not coping to fix it with long-term sustainability of liquid fuels because they don't want to govern in the interests of Australia. They want to govern in the interests of staying in government. And so all they do is crisis management. They never do long-term building. That's why we see they tolerated anti-Semitism for so long till there was a crisis. They've let fuel security and resilience in this country go so long till there's a crisis. They are not a government that wants Australia to be strong. They're a government that wants to keep themselves elected.
Lee, I've decided that I might get an EV, when they can travel 800 k's on one charge, when the battery can be fully charged within a couple of minutes at a charging station. I don't have to wait more than 60 seconds to access. What do you reckon?
I think you might be waiting a little while there, James. This pipe dream of, isn't it reliable? Isn't it the future? Isn't it the way we all need to turn to? Basically, it means that everybody will stay within their immediate city or locations, and anyone travelling between rural and regional areas, as if. Good luck. I mean, where I live, an EV wouldn't suit me. I don't even think I can get, from one part of Tasmania to the next, or living on a property. Good luck with an EV. I was speaking to someone recently, actually, that had a Tesla. It says they wanted to get a boat. And I said, I thought it was a joke. I said, what do you mean? How are you going to tow it? And I said, how are you going to back an EV into the water to put a boat trailer in there? I'm confused, but people are just in denial when they obviously have EVs. It was hilarious. But look, when it comes to, when I saw the stats on this, was it 3 to 30% of margin of error in regards to the mileage or the fuel consumption on these hybrids and EVs. I'm not a lawyer, but Australian consumer law, how is this being allowed to happen? How is this, that is fraud, that's false advertising, and why isn't more being done about this? Or is it purely being ignored because it's achieving or giving this falsehood of this green energy and this net zero fantasy? So, yeah, I'd steer clear. I'm not interested. And I'd say don't go there either too, James.
I'll hold off a little longer, but I promise I'll call you, Lee, before I decide to get one, just to make sure it's okay. Just quickly, we're going to go in a second, but have a look at this happy photo posted on the Prime Minister's Twitter account today. There he is, posing beside Microsoft Chief Executive Satya Nadella. Microsoft is looking at investing $25 billion in Australia with plans for 29 data centres across the country. Sounds kind of exciting. Just one problem. AI data centres use huge amounts of power. This from the report detailing Microsoft's plans. The government anticipates data centres will consume around 6% of grid-supplied electricity by 2030, which is up from roughly 2% today. So this kind of goes to what we've been talking about tonight, that, it illustrates the fundamental problem. If you want nice things, you need abundant energy, and it really doesn't seem like the Labor government or their partners, the Greens, have much, sort of ambition of creating that. Ross Cadell, Lee Hanson, appreciate you joining me tonight. Thanks so much. All right, still